All right, I think we can get started. They're starting across the hall, so let's go. All right, my name is Alan Golbig. I'm from Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York City. And today we're going to talk about InstallLion.pkg and ways you can automate your line installation. OS X Lion was released almost a year ago on the Mac App Store, and as we all know, the Mac App Store made it really easy for our users to purchase and install Lion on their machines. For us, we had the issue of people putting their personal licenses on our assets, so we had to come up with ways of blocking that. Since we use Casper, we added the Lion installation to the restricted software list. What happens with this is a user will try to install Lion, it'll disappear, they'll get a little pop-up message saying, this is not allowed, please contact the help desk if you have any questions, and we'll get an email notification so we can contact them and be like, hey, do you know Lion's not allowed to be installed this way? If you want to be added to a group to get it, here's how we do it. To do that, we wanted to make sure to use self-service. Self-service is very popular with our users. Every day I see installations 20 to 30 per day. So we wanted to take use of that and add Lion to it. So the user would just click install, walk away, come back, and their machine's upgraded. A few months after Lion was released, Greg Nagel over at Disney Animations created InstallLion.pkg. There's a link if you want to download it. The advantages of InstallLion.pkg over the OS X install that you would get from the Mac App Store, it's fully automated. So your users, once the installation finishes within Self-Service or Monkey or whatever management tool you're using, it just kicks off and goes. User doesn't have to hit next, next, next. So there's no questions of what they have to do. It just starts, finishes, reboots, does whatever it needs to do, and you're good. They have Lion, and they don't call the help desk. They don't ask for any help. You don't have to deploy anybody. It's pretty quick. Also, you have the ability to customize the InstallESD.dmg that's located within the installer. So if you want to add any additional packages or do any kind of customization, you can do that. And like I said, you can use any management tool of choice. So we use Casper. There's people here I know that use Monkey, Absolute Manage. You can use it with Deploy Studio. You can use it with Apple Remote Desktop. InstallLion is just a payload-free package. That means that no files are being installed. The installation is all done by scripts. The script is the post-flight script, which is located in contents of resources of the InstallLion package. And its goal is to mimic the GUI, the same GUI that you would see from the from installing from the Mac OS, from the Mac App Store, so that you basically have the same installation process. So let's get started. The first thing you want to do is download your VPP, which is volume licensing. If you don't want to deploy Lion with a personal Apple ID, if it goes to Internet Recovery, you're going to get a phone call asking for your Apple ID, and you really don't want to do that. So come up with an institutional Apple ID, go get your volume licensing. Once you download the app from the App Store, the only thing you need to do, and this is bare bones, uncustomizable, automated installer, is just copy the InstallESD into the contents resources of the package. That's it. If you just want an uncustomizable, automated installer, no frills, put that up to your deployment tools and you're good to go. You have your automated Lion installer. Actually, before we take a closer look, how many of you have actually used InstallLion.pkg? Cool. So not many of you. Cool. So this will be helpful, I hope. So we're going to take a quick look with Pacifist. If you haven't used Pacifist, it's a great tool. Lets you look into packages, see what's going on. Hopefully you can see this. If you can't, my slides will be available shortly after. The package is pretty simple. The only thing, once we just added the InstallESD, which is right here, that's pretty much it. There's not much to it. Real quickly, I want to go over distribution.dist and the post-flight script. Post-flight script will take a little bit longer, but the distribution.dist is a prerequisite check. It'll check your basic installations and volumes, make sure that you can actually install Lion on this machine. It will check to see if you have a 64-bit Intel processor, less than 2 gigs of RAM, less than 8 gigs of hard drive space, and if your machines are running under 10.6.6 or 10.8 and above, it won't install. That's what's set by the actual file. It's not as thorough as Apple's, but it will get the job done. We've modified the distribution dist file a bit. Since Lion's a little memory intensive, we wanted our machines that have less than 4 gigs to we're not deploying it just yet to those machines, so we've adjusted it by changing the 2 to 4, so those machines wouldn't be able to install Lion. So let's talk about the post-flight script. Like I said earlier, the goal of the script is to mimic the Mac App Store installer GUI. Sorry. The first thing it's going to do is it's going to install a folder to the root of your hard drive called Mac OS X install data. After that, the install esd.dmg that we spoke about earlier is going to be mounted to temp, but it's going to be set to no browse, so you won't actually see it. And then it's going to copy the boot.efi and the kernel cache to that OS X install data folder. After that, the install ESD is going to be unmounted and then copied or hard linked based upon what the target volume is of your installer. Following the unmounting and the copying of the ESD, com.apple.boot.plist is going to be copied, or created, actually. What that does is it tells the kernel cache that was copied how to mount install ESD and how to use it on reboot. So here's an example of what that com.apple.bootlist file looks like. So it's telling the kernel cache that's located in the OS X install data to grab that install ESD and actually grab the base system DMG that's within it. Following that, it's going to create the minstallconfig.xml. This is the automation file that's created. It does other things as well, but the main point of it is what tells the installer, hey, I'm going to be automated. There's going to be no need to hit next, and but what it also does, and we'll take a look at the example. The first thing it shows, and this was the example from my file that we're going to look at later when we do the demo. It's first telling the OS that there is a choice changes file. Choice changes is if any of you have used InstallDMG or any kind of, when you want to change the options for installer, so you have the choices XML. That's the choice changes file here. For the purposes of the demo, I'm going to remove X11 from my installation. But if the choice changes file is present, it'll list it here. Install type automated, that's what tells the installer that it is an automated installation. Package, what this does is, so since you can customize the packages, when it's first mounting the install ESD to copy everything, it'll scan to see if there's any customized packages. If there is, it'll put this line in system install packages OS install collection. If you're just doing the bare bone regular install, that OS install collection will be OSInstall.pkg. And then finally, it's telling you, the installer, what the target is. The next two steps is the installer creates a file called index.sproduct and one that's called OSInstall.adder.plist. The index.sproduct, this is one of the things you can customize as well, but what it does is it will reference a file which is called macOS 10.7 incompatible app list.package. That package will list the incompatible apps with Lion. So you may have users who have older versions of Parallels or something like that. If they do the installation, what it does is it creates a folder at the root of the hard drive called the incompatible app list, or apps, and it'll move all the files from that so it doesn't harm the machine. So when you start up, it'll actually run. But if you don't create the if you don't run the script later on to create this, the post-flight script will actually create a blank one for you. Oh, and actually, that's the URL for that. The OS install adder.plist file is actually an interesting file because what it will do is it logs the time at which the installation finishes versus when the user hits restart. This is kind of important because if the installer deems there's too much time in between, it actually kills the automation. So here you can see the end date is at this time, and it's pointing it to the automation. So the automation file, which is the minstall.config or minstallconfig.xml. And what they'll do is it'll completely kill your automation process. So you may get a call from the help desk saying, this person's saying their OS line installer is not automated. What's going on? Chances are they walked away from their desk, didn't hit restart, came back, hit restart, and now it's been an hour, so the installation stops being automated. The last 3 steps are to set the NVRAM, so that the installer knows what product to use, to bless the system so that it knows to boot off of the Mac OS X install data folder that we talked about, and then restart. That's pretty much it for doing an uncustomized installer. That's the process of the post-flight script. I'm going to go over customization in a little bit, but I just want to, any questions so far?
The target disk, so you had I guess it was the target was root and then the target volume, Macintosh HD. What if that can vary on different systems? Is that built on the fly? Does it see what its current boot disk is? And build that file and information? You have to know it ahead of time.
I've never done anything other than the root. I know that if the install, the thing that's pointing to, I believe the automation is just if you're doing it straight to the system that it's on. But I'm guessing it can vary. I've never actually installed it to anything other than the drive that I've been pointing to. So a secondary drive, I know for this purpose, the automation can't point to any other, because that's what the automation does. Because when you actually do an OS install from the Mac App Store, it'll give you an option to point to a secondary drive. Does that answer?
No, what I was asking, the primary boot drive where you want to do the install, some may be Macintosh space HD.
Oh, it doesn't care about the name, because the target's just / which is the root of the drive. Okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So the install ESD file, that's not linked to an iTunes account, is it?
No, it's not. It's the installer.app that is.
So how are you tracking, for payment to Apple for the different licenses? Is that through the VPP?
So with the VPP, you buy a bulk of licenses. So we bought 800, I believe, if not more. And we keep track of that with Lion. And most importantly, with the way that Casper works, they have receipts. So we can keep a smart group of machines that were upgraded with this. So as long as and that's basically how we keep track of it.
You basically just say Apple, hey, we did 20 today. It's not like that.
You basically buy a bulk and you keep track of it. So yeah.
Apple kind of holds you to the standard of
Yeah.
keeping track of it.
Yeah, but technically, you can use any install the ESD machine. Technically. It's just legally it's a separate issue.
With their volume licensing program, they give you an actual license.
Right.
There's never any prompt to actually enter it in.
Correct.
You use the license code that you get is for redeeming it from the Mac App Store.
No. I actually just purchased 100 licenses and was never actually prompted to enter it in.
When I got mine, I had to go to the App Store, hit the redeem code, and type it in. Yeah, did you have a copy of Lion installed? Because
It was just, and I talked to my wife and everything, yeah.
I'm with her. Same
We
thing.
paid $1,500 for 100 licenses.
We got 1,000 licenses.
Never
They
prompted?
just sent us the nice little password protected PDF file, gave us the license code, and never was prompted.
Yeah, no, that's what and then you took that code and went to the App Store?
No, you take that code and you file it, and you have it for reference.
You're pretty much just on the honor system, and that Apple expects you to keep track of how many times.
Doesn't really matter, I mean, you can pull it off any install line. Or you can look at the USB.
All right, well, we can discuss this a little later, but I mean, it does get tied to an Apple ID. So if you do go into line like Internet Recovery, it's going to prompt you for.
Not if you just use install ESD-DMG. If you take install
That's true.
and make a USB disk out of it, you can install any Mac. It will not be tied to any.
Go into the recovery partition.
Well, for our purposes, we get audited, so I like to keep track, and so there's that.
That's why it's a separate issue.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's take a look at customization. We're going to remove X11, and then we're going to add some more packages, including Xquartz QuickTime, our Create Admin package, and a few others. So what are some reasons to modify? You want to alter the default installer options with your choice changes file, put back your management tools with Monkey or say Casper, recreate your admin account, because when you do an upgrade, if you have a hidden admin account, it's going to get wiped. So you need a good way of putting that back. And of course, to install additional applications. What can you customize? So you can change the macOS 10 installer choice changes file. There's two scripts that Greg has created, get incompatible app list package and customize install ESD. So let's take a look at all three of those. The macOS 10 installer.choicechanges file allows you to alter the default installation. The location of that file is within the package and contents resources macOS 10 install data. The best way to create the choices.xml file is to plug in an external drive and just run this command right here and just output it to wherever you want. So you could do temp choices.xml or to your desktop. And then it's basically going to give you a choice of all of your choice identifiers for the installation. So for here, I wanted to remove X11. So on the left where it says attribute setting integer 1, integer 1 means it's checked and it's going to be installed by default. I'm changing that to 0, which means it's unchecked. You're going to save the file. Make sure you save it as the choice changes and not an XML, and copy it back in, because if you don't change it to that exact name, it won't run. That's it for that one. Let's look at the first script, get incompatible app list package. And I spoke about the index S product and the 10.7 incompatible app list package. This script will download those two files for you, which updates the list during installation of the incompatible apps for Lion. Like I said earlier, it's not included. If you don't include this, the post-flight script will create an empty index.s product. This is what the inside of the incompatible app package looks like. I know it's a little small, but like I said, the notes will be available. It puts two files within system migration.framework and the private frameworks called incompatible application strings and migration incompatible applications list.plist. We can take a look at an example. This is of Little Snitch, which we have some users who have tried installing it, so it's always fun. This is telling it that version 1.2 is not compatible, so it's going to put it in that incompatible app folder. Here is a demo of how the script works. You just run the script. It's going to download those two files, and then you're just going to copy them into the InstallLion package, into resources, contents resources, macOS 10 install data. And that's it. So when the installer runs, it's going to see that those are there and put them into their proper place. Up next is going to be the customized install ESD script. I think this is the most important one because this is where people get to customize their installer, something you can't do with the Mac App Store installation app. So you have the ability to add additional packages to your installer. By doing so, you're modifying the install ESD. It's creating a OS install collection file, which tells the installer what packages you want to install and which order it's going to do it. One thing to keep in mind, the install environment for Lion is very different than the install environment for Lion. It's very much like the recovery environment, so there's not a lot of tools available. So there's going to be some apps and some scripts that won't run. One being create Lion user for anybody who uses InstallDMG. If you were to put that into your install ESD, you're going to get a fail because Discal is not available within the install environment. Same thing if you use Casper and you tried adding your quick add package, that's going to fail as well because it doesn't have the Jamf binary or it doesn't know any of the Jamf tools.
Simple drag and drop would work.
When you install a package, simple drag and drop apps, Firefox, Chrome, or just the...
I would probably not do it through there. I probably could. You need to make a package, like a fat package, because for create admin, I have one instead of create line user, I have the admin account, our hidden admin account, and you basically make a package that has the plist file that's in VirDB, dslocal, nodes default users. I think that's the one. And then it also has one that just creates the hidden home folder in its location. And that's all the create admin account is.
What are the restrictions, I guess, and what can and can't be?
Anything that is not available in the tools under the install environment. You have to keep track. I mean, it's at this point it has to be something that's an installer because it gets installed after the actual OS 10 installer finishes. So I'll show in the demo. There's going to be like a point where it says you have 35 minutes. It goes and then it hits a point where it says create admin, disable first boot setup, first boot script, exports, and QuickTime. So.
If it's a package that's just moving files, that works.
Yeah.
If it's a package that needs a post-flight script,
Yeah.
you gotta investigate.
Yeah, and the best way to do that is boot into recovery, go to the terminal and see what tools are available. Here are the command options. Again, it's a little small, but the fault is that it checks for the OS 10 Lion app in applications, but like other people said, they just use the install ESD. You can tell it to point it to it. So by doing customize install ESD -D, point to the install ESD of your choice, -O for output, and then output to your choice. It's probably good to output to somewhere else and keep track. So if you have multiple versions of Lion, say one for a lab, one for the teachers or for doctors or whatnot, this way you can keep track of different versions of it. And then this is what I'm going to add.
Sorry.
That's okay. This is what I'm going to add to my install ESD. So the create admin package that I just spoke about, disable setup assistant, which disables that first login, welcome to Lion, all that. My first boot package, which I make sure my Casper tools are on, set some of my network settings, install Java with custom triggers through Casper, and some Lion defaults, Xquartz, which I'm going to use to replace X11, and QuickTime 766 because a lot of our users still use QuickTime Pro.
Are you using like Composer or something to make those packages?
I used Composer to make the create admin package. I know some people use Luggage for that. The disable setup assistant, yeah, I used Composer. And then for the first boot, I used Package Maker. This is the output of the OS install collection. So you see that first, the create admin is going to be created first, then first boot, then disable setup assistant, Xquartz, and QuickTime Player. Here's a quick demo of how the script works. I'm going to put my admin account in. It's going to ask me, do I want to build that installed disk image? It's going to mount the ESD, copy those files in, unmount it, and then it's going to create a new install ESD that I've told to output to users shared. This is a lot quicker because I use QuickTime Pro to speed it up, to cut it, trim it out. Been using it in ages, but there you go. And then once you're done with that, you're going to copy that to the contents resources folder of InstallLion package, and that's it. There you go. And like I said, that's a lot quicker too. It'll take a few minutes to do because it's going to be roughly around like 3 to 4 gigs. So this is a final look of what your package will look like once you're done. So earlier I put the install ESD in, index sproduct and macOS 10.7 incompatible app lists are in the install data, and the modified choice changes file is in the install data as well. So when the install ESD is mounted, before the script starts running, it scans to see if any of those changes are made, and that's what gets put into the minstall config file. So a great thing about InstallLion is that you can use any management tool of your choice. We use Casper. You can use Monkey, Deploy Studio, Absolute Manage, ARD. For Casper, we cache the installer to people's machines so they don't have to sit there and wait for it to download before installing. Once it is finished caching, they'll get a notification on their desktop saying, hey, here's Lion. You can grab it from Self Service. And when they go in, they'll see it, they'll hit install, this little pop-up comes up, and you can see we changed, so we say 4 gigs of RAM. We have people who ask if 2 gigs is fine. We're like, yeah, but you may want to bump it up. We don't have Monkey, and I'm going to show you a few slides of what it would look like on other deployment tools that I got from some people. This would be with Monkey. This is with your optional installs. I think Nate's here. Thanks, Nate. With Deploy Studio, Absolute Manage, this is what they'll see when they get to their software updates. And of course you can use Apple Remote Desktop, or I mean honestly you could just put the installer package on someone's desktop, hit install, and restart, and they're good to go. The end result is when the machine reboots, it's going to be here, just installing Lion on their machine. Before I start the demo, is there any questions? No.
What were you saying about the hidden admin account gets deleted?
Anytime you do an upgrade, whether it's 10.5 to 10.6, 10.6 to 10.7 or whatever, if you have accounts that are outside of the home folder and they're hidden, and they'll just get wiped out. So you have to make sure that your account is put back. So for our purposes, we have a hidden admin account. You're always going to want to make sure that you have some process of putting it back. You can either make a package or you can have a first boot script and make sure that, so for Casper, you can create any account with one of their binary, with the binary, there's an option, it's called Jamf create account. So you can put that into a first boot script, so it does that. But you just want to make sure that it puts the account back.
But outside the home folder, you mean outside of /users?
In /users, yeah. So if you have an admin account /users, you're fine. Okay. If you have an account that's outside of /users, you're going to have to put it back.
Okay.
This versus re-imaging, of course, obviously you have to think through that.
Yeah.
You know, weighing the pros and cons.
There are multiple reasons why you would use this or you would re-image. So our laptops are encrypted. This won't work. InstallLion won't work on any machine that's encrypted. So you're always going to have to decrypt. So there's that. And that actually is a big issue. Also, you can't go from 10.5. So if you have 10.5 machines, you're going to have to either do 10.5 to 10.6 and then 10.6. And we've done a mixture of everything. So we'll do some machines that we decrypt and then do the upgrade and then re-encrypt. There's some machines that will just wipe and start from scratch with just using Casper. And there's, you know, it really depends. It depends on the users for us, really. If they're going to complain about it,
Do you find a lot of maintenance? Do you have many regrets with doing this by having to do a lot of maintenance after the upgrade, saying, I wish the system was really reimaged, it would have been a lot better for everybody?
it depends on the user. It really does. If you have a user who's complaining and they just want it done, this is great. It's like 30 minutes, they're gone, they go to lunch, they come back.
Sure.
It's perfect. And reimaging, you got to back up their data. That could take hours. So it really depends. It does depend on the situation. Each situation is different. I personally love it. I mean, my boss came in one day and she had the notification. She said, "Oh, what's this?" and did it. And 30 minutes later, she had line. And so, that's great. I mean, there's no better thing than that.
No, for the encryption, you said that Mason, is that third party or Apple's encryption?
Any encryption.
Okay.
So, yeah, we use Checkpoint, and yeah, you have to do that. But
So by the time it takes you to decrypt, you might as well reimage.
right. But like I said, it really depends.
So even Firewall, it doesn't work with.
It's Firewall 1, Firewall 2.
Yeah. Well, Firewall 2 is only available online, so.
Firewall 1, Firewall 2, Firewall 2. I just had it.
You can upgrade a system that already has firewalls run on it.
Yeah.
You won't be able to turn on firewall 2 until you decrypt it.
Okay.
Any issues with this working with Penn for years?
I haven't. There's a few things that you need to keep in mind because some of the things have changed, and you can always do a unbind rebind with the first boot script. So there's always ways around it.
Depends on your Active Directory environment.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right, so I'm just going to show a quick demo. It originally was about 30 minutes, but I've parsed it down to, I think, like 5. So that's pretty good. That's not it. There we go. So I'm just in the demo. I'm just logging in as a standard user. In a little bit, you're going to see a Casper share pop up in the top right corner. What that's doing right now is it's caching the installer to the users. There's a folder called Waiting Room in Library Applications Support JAMP. Once it's done, it's going to do a recon to check the inventory. If it sees that package, we have a policy that says display a notification to the user based on the line upgrade packages in that folder. And yeah, we have a lot of Eudora users still. So, we did. Lions kind of killed that. That's go Lion. Some people might kill me for saying that, but you know. So they launched Self Service. We have the little information about it. Hit install. It's going to start, and this is where the installer is installing. Post-flight script's running. It's creating the macOS 10 install data, copying all the files in that it needs to. Once this is done, there's going to be a pop-up that says, please restart. And then the user will have the Lion installation process beginning. So this is the only user interface that needs to take place. And it's pretty simple. And I mean, a lot of our users are using self-service daily to install anything, pretty much. I thought I made this a little faster. There we go. So there's the reboot, hit OK, quit out of self-service, and then on the reboot, you're going to be in Lion. Well, the Lion installation process, which takes about 35 minutes, I've found. Sometimes it's a little faster. But if you have an SSD, and also you also have to take into account what additional packages you're adding, because that will take place at the end. So there you go. At first, it's going to check to see if it can build a recovery disk. If it can't, it will actually fail and go back to 10.6. I've had that happen once or twice. Run file system check, and it usually fixes it.
Any reason you didn't have a self-service initiate reboot?
There is. I'll go go over that in a second.
Did you get any phone calls from people that didn't quit out of self-servicing?
No. So you can see right here, just quickly, that's where the additional packages are added. Sorry, what was your question?
Did you have anyone call because they got hung up because self-service didn't quit and they're just like, oh, I don't know what happened?
No, it's actually been pretty good. So the user's going to hit restart. Actually, we're going to let it count down 10 seconds because they're not at their desk. So we'll do that. No, it's actually been pretty good for that. I was worried about that. I've had mixed results with the reboots that are forced by self-service, so I just... at this point, my first boot script is running, adding Java and some other stuff, and I sped it up. But now I'm just going to log in. We're in Lion. That's the whole process. Log in with my account. And then we're going to go check to see if X11's gone and QuickTime and Xports are there. So we're going to go to the Applications folder. And there you go, QuickTime Player 7 and Xports, and there's no X11. So our customization was intact. Let's log out, and we're going to go check to see if our hidden admin account is created. And since this is pre-recorded, we know it is, because I'm not going to do a live demo for my first presentation. But there you go. It's created, so it is indeed a hidden account. But yeah, that's it. So that's a demo. So some things I learned. One thing is the automation will be killed if there's too much time between the restarts. So you might see that from time to time. You may get a call. Just know that that's probably the reason why there's no automation, is that the user probably kicked off the installer from self-service or Monkey or whatever and didn't hit restart, and there was too much time. I could possibly put, like someone said, another way of doing the restart, but I kind of wanted the user to do it. We did have an issue where the policy wasn't getting logged because I was forcing an immediate restart. So until that's solved, this is how we're doing it, at least. Remember to always check your packages and scripts before adding them to install ESD. Like I said earlier, the environment's not the same. Not everything is going to install properly. If one installer fails, anything beyond that will also fail. So you want to make sure that everything's working. And also remember your hidden admin accounts will need to be reinstalled if they're outside of users. Any questions?
How closely did you have to work with your networking group to tell them that, hey, we're going to be shoving this through this package?
We're not doing it on the fly to everybody. We thought about this. We're like, hey, if we push this to everybody, somebody's going to say something.
How large of an environment do you have?
We have around 1,600 Macs, and there's 10,000 employees, if not more. So it's pretty big. So we thought about that. I was like, because I was ready one day to just push everything and be like, yeah, everybody's going to get Lion. And I'm like, wait, this is stupid. That's not going to work. Somebody's going to just, I'm going to get a phone call in like 10 minutes. So the way we've been doing it is we send out, the way we're personally doing it is we send out an email saying Lion's available. We have like a self-service type request system where they request it. That gets sent, creates a help desk ticket. We get the ticket. We can contact the user. We tell them we're going to start the process. We'll cache the installer to them. And then it basically minimizes, because not everybody wants it. We have a bunch of users who still use Office 2004, and they will not give it up. And you saw earlier, we have users who still use Eudora, and they will not give it up. So but yeah, we thought about that because. Cool. Any other questions?
There's a comment. There can actually be some advantages to adding a little bit of time and pain to the process, which makes it so all the users Just don't ask for it at once. You say, well, we're going to have your Mac for a day. Oh,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean with encryption that's what we do. That's how we kind of do it with encryption. We're like, we're gonna need your computer for a day because it has to decrypt, and you have a 5400 RPM drive that's 500 gigs. So that's gonna take me about 9 hours. So then I'll start the process again tomorrow, and then I'll reinstall encryption. So, and then they were like, oh, maybe we'll just reimage. I'm like, okay. But yeah, I mean, sometimes we have users who are like, oh, that's fine. That's fine. I'll do that. I'm like, okay. So, but yeah.
We have a lot more than say, a day? Sure.
Yeah.
One of the environments that I support with Casper is a bring your own device model. Where there's no help desk, you're on your own for support, and this has been a great thing. People that allows to get an enterprise license and push over to the line, but they can do it at their own.
Right.
And nobody has touched the machine because the infrastructure isn't there. And literally, there are people all around the world doing this.
Cool. Great. And yours logs at restart, so.
Yes, it does.
Right.
Just out of curiosity, how many people are on your team for those 1600 Macs?
So there's different groups. We have a field services group that has a bunch of guys, and then our group has 3, but we take care of Casper and whatnot, but there's 2 of us that do that.
Where is the InstallLion.pkg? Where is that from?
The link, it's in the slides, so I'll post them later. I'll put some notes and stuff on them, and I'm sure they're going to ask me for them.
Okay.
Yeah, you can get it from Monkey's website.
Okay.
What's the distribution of your work like? Are they spread across multiple buildings, multiple states?
I'm lucky that we're all in New York. And I'm lucky that, well, we have some in Jersey, but, it's pretty close. I'm going to get in trouble for that one. But yeah, so we have some that are downtown and some midtown and some uptown where I am. But yeah, it's not very far. We have good networking pipe for that too, because we have users who have lots of large data sets, and our data is kind of all over, so we have pretty good infrastructure, so transferring the files, we haven't had a problem. And I've not had a single failure in this process. I've only had one where the automation file got killed off, but other than that, it's worked great.
I don't use a self-service, so it's probably more of a self-service question, but you get like a report on, how many people attempted to download it and if it was successful, or?
Yeah, I mean, when you have self-service, you get your policy logs pretty much tell you everything you need to know. So each log, you'll know who's downloading, what's getting installed, and whether there's failures. I get email alerts if there's a failure, which is always fun. So, and if somebody's not patient enough for something, they'll try to do it over and over and over again. You'll get errors. So.
Are all of your users in New Jersey?
No, they're not. They're all.
New Jersey? Oh, what?
The users.
Oh.
No.
I think the Office 2004 users.
They have in New Jersey.
No, they're not. It's the scientists. They PowerPoint in 2004 is better than it is now for some reason. I don't know. But yeah, that's pretty much why. Any other questions? Cool. All right. Well, thanks for coming, and enjoy the rest of the conference.